Alright, time for another DriftPhysics.com, DebatePhysics.com, but the debate is all just one way. That's all there is. Can't get any counter arguments from the opposition, I guess you could call it. Anyway, so this is part 2, volume 2, whatever, of a reply video to a argument made by Professor Dave that certain cranks are too cranky and they don't provide enough evidence and all that crap, and you know, it's just hypocritical duplicity because the conventional theory is so weakly evidenced and they will accept no critique of their theories. And they're just theories, frankly, and they're really bad ones, frankly. So this is not Professor Dave, this is some guy from the other video. But anyway, this is where we left off, so that's where we'll continue from. Yeah, let's do that.
Who have evidence of ESP. Of course, scientists pointed out what was wrong with his methodology, but the narrator basically pretends that he was unfairly debunked. There is no attempt to elaborate or actually discuss this.
So, sorry, that is a little bit redundant. Yeah, we did that part at the end of the last video. But yes, conventional physics uses the same methodology. That is the point. They make arguments in one case about how it's invalid when they use it, but it's valid when we use it. So, I mean, there's a lot of that in science.
Study because he has no clue and his viewers don't care. In actuality,
yeah, you could say the same thing to about your viewers and whatever. So that is a weird part of his channel. Is the he does lots of subjects. So I give him credit. He opines on a tremendous variety of subjects, mostly biological stuff, chemistry and worms, but lots of them. Even profiles the presidents over the years or something. I don't know. I haven't watched that. Does some economic videos, which probably are horrendously bad. But we'll get to all that eventually, I guess. I mean, there is so much to argue. And the fact that nobody's doing those arguments. So he says all of these things, and there's so few people opining, in video form anyway, rebutting these statements.
What happened is precisely what I described earlier. Publishing ESP results is a bold claim.
Yeah, right. And so is entanglement, and so is photons are twice as bent by gravity. Bold claim.
So bold that many people tried to reproduce the results. Reproducibility in a social science like psychology is much more complex than with a simple chemical reaction, so a lot of studies tried to do it. Absolutely nobody could, so it was labeled bad.
So it got caught. Yeah, that's sort of the thing, right? So if it's not an interesting subject, you don't even catch all the bad science. Oh, okay.
Science. Formscapes wants to label this process corruption, but it's the opposite of corruption.
Oh, I think it's exactly the definition of groupthink, populist culture think, this whole idea that there's this elite group that'll tell everybody what the roads are that we're going to discuss, and any roads that aren't on their map aren't discussable. And that's really what's going on, and you're an example of it, frankly.
It's precisely how science works.
And it doesn't work, is the point. And again, taking credit for every innovation ever innovated is absolutely ridiculous. We know that a bunch of theory isn't what gets results. It took 30 years to do the blue LED. The theory was sort of known. Okay, there's these electrons that are getting bounced around. We have to follow the bouncing electron. But finding the materials that could do it, theory didn't help much.
Sometimes extraordinary claims get published, even in fields like chemistry or physics. Fedyakin's polywater sensation in 1961.
Oh, you don't have to go back that far, I'm sure. So, whatever. And yes, it all looks credible. Like I said, I could go all the way back to de Chardilly's 1740. Grenson's let's dent clay with round objects. Nobody debunked it, okay? Nobody thought about it a little bit and said, well, the round object thing is a problem because that's not going to do the same thing as it goes into the clay. It's going to be doing something different. because of the round surfaces and the the vertical and the horizontal surfaces are going to change your results. And nobody could even do that simple deduction. The fact checking is non-existent, frankly, and it's only existent when Einstein says something wacky. Then everybody pays attention. But if it's not Einstein saying the wacky thing slides through. I mean, where was the testing for the theory that you can convert matter into bent space? Right? The only way they could make the LIGO thing possible was they had to invent a new physical phenomenon where matter, solar masses, somehow don't convert into photons, high energy photons. No, they convert into actual bent space. Come on. Who tested that theory?
Benveniste and water memory in 1988. Fleischmann and Pons's cold fusion in 1989. These are glamorous examples that the press sometimes runs with in an irresponsible way.
Yeah, well, the press doesn't know enough to know when there is a controversy, and so you have to point it out to them. And how often do you point out your mistakes? Oh, probably very rarely.
Because of the extraordinary nature of the claims, they were scrutinized, demonstrated to be irreproducible despite countless attempts, and thereby invalidated.
And taken a year to do that in some cases. A full year. And some amount of resources and all of that crap. So again, you've had at least more than 100 years to replicate the Eddington experiment. 100 and 10 years. You had a perfect eclipse over North America. And there's still the space argument that is a slam dunk for fake news. Because, 60 years in space, all kinds of cameras, all kinds of satellites, takes 5 minutes, don't need an eclipse, hasn't been done. It's an absolutely irrational circumstance. There's no way to defend the fact that physics, science, hasn't demanded that you redo the Eddington experiment from space. It's so much easier. You could do it using Jupiter. It's a fact. Einstein pointed that out himself. That if it wasn't for the poor resolution, you can't use Jupiter from Earth, but you can certainly use Jupiter from space.
If extraordinary claims were to represent real, viable phenomena, reproduction of results would occur, they would be deemed revolutionary, and scientists would pursue them eagerly, as has also happened many times in the history of science.
And it's also happened that they don't repeat it many times. So I'm just saying the fact that all these experiments that you haven't even, it's just Leibniz says so, okay? 4 pounds dropped 1 foot, same energy as 1 pound dropped 4 feet. I mean, you couldn't get kind of imbecilically silly enough. I mean, that's like dropping stuff off the Eiffel Tower or whatever. I mean, come on, you can't get that experiment done? And where have you done it? Oh, that's right, you haven't even done it. Where's the paper? No scientific paper on the fact, okay, proving the fact we're supposed to believe. Where's the paper on it takes 25 times the fuel to spin a motor 5 times as fast? Where's the paper on that? Oh, that's right, it doesn't exist. Yet you're perfectly comfortable claiming it's true.
It's not that hard to wrap your head around a scientist chasing their own ego in presenting them.
Yeah, it's impossible to find the opposite. The opposite's hard to find. The scientist without an ego, that's the thing hard to find.
Themselves as the harbinger of scientific revolution.
I mean, it's like the whole wireless thing. You go all the way back to Tesla, the big fraud, right? I mean, the guy who invented the thing didn't want to patent anything, didn't want any credit, didn't want any money. The guy who discovered the whole crystal crap. And these other 2 assholes end up fighting over his discovery. Who gets to own his discovery?
Even highly respected and eminent ones, hence the so-called Nobel disease. In stark contrast, the idea that scientists would collectively...
I think you're arguing against your own argument here. You ought to have just shut up and said, well, yeah, you're right on that one. We are a little bit duplicitous. Because this argument is so weak. I mean, you're just basically pointing out, yeah, we do this. Yes, we do chase prizes. Yes, we do all these negative, terribly negative things that corrupt science.
Hide new discoveries because they contradict current paradigms is just an asinine narrative to excuse delusional behavior.
Yeah, bullshit. So it's just asinine for you to defend the fact that all of the premises of physics are highly under evidence. So you're telling us we must believe in entanglement, and that's based on these weird kind of bizarre claims in these experiments, right? I mean, Alan Aspect overtly stating, basically, I saw a photon here, and then I saw the same exact photon 10 meters away. 10 meters away, I saw the same exact photon. The very idea of saying you seeing a photon that's already, how can you see it without destroying it? Oh, that's right, you can't see it without stopping it. So how the hell could that happen anyway? I mean, come on.
Here he is again, just pasting clickbait titles from magazines.
Oh yes, and none of the credible conventional scientists ever do anything like that. No, that never happens. Amazing.
As though they adequately address science, while mixing in some pandemic-related paranoia for good measure. This is very deliberate, as he is now going to pivot to medical science.
The phrase, trust the science, is sometimes repeated like a kind of shibboleth or mantra.
And so let's just watch the commercials on YouTube. Okay, so let's just say this is what there's no part of our culture that has any voice and has anything to say. So all of you scientists making huge bucks for YouTube, your huge view numbers, and they're running commercials for what's got to be just called snake oil. I mean, you know, cure your prostate cancer. I mean, just absolute bullshit. Commercials. You just need to do this simple trick. Stand on your head and drink a glass of water and everything will be just fine.
Nobody who advocates for science has ever said, trust the science. This is a dumb trope used exclusively by science deniers who try to pretend that...
What a pile of crap. You're all claiming you have credibility. Your whole video here is to claim that you have credibility. The argument is that some of it is just plain incredible, and it's incredible because you've made it that way, in the sense that you won't even allow somebody to counter-argue your crap. You won't allow your science to be interrogated. And that's the simple flaw in your system, is there is a lack of interrogation. Every time somebody tries to attempt to interrogate you, you ban him for fucking life. That's how it works. Every single science-related form. All I have to do is say, I think, okay, one of your fundamental claims of reality is wrong. Forget it. You're done. Okay? They won't discuss it.
Science requests blind faith. It doesn't. People who learn and understand science know how it works, and therefore are aware of the reliability of empiricism.
So here he is showing this little clickbait bullshit. Oh yeah, these are real scientists. These aren't actors. Oh. I mean, it's usually, well, okay, there's no black guy in the picture, so, okay, this isn't a true diversity picture. You know, but yeah, what a pile of shit.
As well as the degree to which various principles in science are at this point essentially irrefutable. This whole shtick is just a meme.
Professional journalists use terms like anti-science or science denial as labels to slap on whatever group.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what they do every time. They call him a flat earther. Professor Lewin gets challenged on his claim that there's two voltages in the same place, and it's Bois-Sabar, and you have to believe it, and that's the truth. And somebody explains the simple mistake he's making, which is to think he can fucking probe a fucking inductor, which you can't really do. What does he get called? A flat earther. That's it. Well, you want to just be a flat earther. You want to just be a flat earther.
Needs to be designated as the villain within whatever political narrative is being evangelized this week.
Well, there hasn't been too many of these, so I have to give the guy credit. He doesn't have these videos littered with commercials, so I'll pause. Well, the catch could be she shoved all the commercials in the last half of the video, so yeah, who knows. Can't say for sure yet. Just as a commentary, I mean, one of the commercials is for the U.S. Postal Service, and they say nothing. They just say, U.S. Postal Service, we deliver, blah, blah, blah. You know, a slogan. And you're just saying, what's the point of that? Like, what? I mean, I know we've imported a lot of foreigners. Maybe they don't know there's a post office, but come on. Yeah, well, what's, you know, unless you're saying something like, we got a sale, we're running a sale, something, but no. So it's just, well, yeah, we're paying for that crap. We're paying fucking the post office to pay YouTube to play a fucking commercial saying there's a post office. Shit.
validity of science are called science deniers. It's just literally what you are.
Oh, bullshit. So we're science defenders, okay? That's the truth of it. And you're denying that truth, all right? That if somebody needs to counter you, you can't just get away with it. We'll make up anything and you'll believe it because 17 of us believe it and we told you so. We're smarter than you. I mean, it's the whole Feynman syndrome. You know, well, if we haven't thought of it, it can't be thought of. Because we're so fucking smart. You can't do what we do, and if we didn't do it, you can't do it. Because we're so fucking smart. I mean, this snarky bullshit. Oh, come on. This is a pathetic defense. Sorry, it's pathetic for you to argue that you have a right to call somebody a science denier when first you haven't examined a damn thing they said. And, oh, well, I'll just profile them. So I can, you know, if you're going to profile me because, okay, the majority of science antagonizers have an agenda, usually religion or UFOs or some sort of wacky shit. Oh, well, that's not exactly my fault that they don't really care about science. They care about some fucking bullshit agenda of, you know, meeting the UFOs, or they have some other wacky thought in their head. Yeah, there's really bad critics of science. But there's also really bad scientists who talk a whole bunch of wacky shit and never get to, you know, no one counters their nonsense. Mickey Ikoku, you know, becomes some sort of populist scientist, and he just talks a pile of shit.
There are no science evangelicals or science apologists. They're just people who understand science and try to explain it to those who deny it.
Oh, whatever that is, and try to explain it. You know, the idea is there's a truth, and the truth should win, it should be defendable, and the people who have the truth should be willing to defend their argument against anything because they're supposed to think it's the winner. And so why are they not betting on their own horse? Why do I have to make offers of thousands of dollars to get them to merely pay attention to an argument?
Humanity doesn't destroy itself.
In spite of how oft-repeated and ubiquitous this attitude towards science is, the reality seems to be that we cannot and should not trust the science.
Yes, you should learn basic science so that you can understand it.
Yeah, but if you're busy, you really can't do that, can you? Like, if you got yourself into a whole bunch of stupid shit in your life, you know, you got kids to raise and all this other crap, maybe you ought to pay attention to that instead. Yeah, but yeah, no, it's really good for people to be educated. Maybe they should quit watching the Olympics and then trying to mimic that behavior and instead mimic something a little more productive. The whole culture emphasizes useless crap, singing, dancing, bullshit. Okay, that's what the whole culture focuses on. We love singers and dancers and poets and bullshitters. Okay, and we despise scientists for some reason. So you guys haven't done a very good job of selling science, have you? Yeah, because you all look like a bunch of wannabes. You all have guitars on your wall, but you obviously can't get there. You can't do that. So you decide to be a scientist instead because you failed at being a useless turd.
Instead of baselessly denying it all over the internet. The very ideal of science is an attitude of unbiased inquiry, which does not...
Yeah, so he's defending the unbiased inquiry, and this other asshole is defending something else. So exactly, so he said the word unbiased inquiry. Isn't that what we're supposed to have? So yes, you can kill the flat earthers right off the bat because none of them are unbiased, right? I mean, they're either compulsive liars or they're religious kooks just saying, you know, telescopes are Satan.
To establish dogmas or doctrines. The great promise of science is that of knowledge which one...
Oh, well, this is pretty hard. So this guy's actually a flat earther or something? He's debating? I'm not sure. I don't know what formscapes means, but it would be kind of ironic that the flat earther would even mention a telescope when, gee, the telescope makes it kind of obvious that everything else in space isn't flat. Oh, shit. It's just... Fuck. Could you be a little dumber? I mean, galaxies are a little bit flat, you know, but nothing else is.
Is able to uncover through one's direct engagement with nature, rather than knowledge which is bestowed from on high by authority.
Another telescope, yeah. Bizarre. Just absolutely bizarre.
And institutions. The very concept of scientific practice would seem to be diametrically opposed to the notion of pious adherence to a corpus of established beliefs which are officially endorsed and authorized by...
So he lets him make this whole diatribe that actually, if a scientist said it, okay, would sound pretty good. Yes, this is what science should be. It should be above all the bullshit. It should be pursuing the truth. It should almost be a sacred duty. I mean, this is something like... yeah, I mean, it's a whole thing of honor and integrity, the whole insulting our intelligence to have any other motive and any other ambition than to cherish and protect, to be a knight, you know, fighting for the truth.
Institutional bureaucracy.
This is another pathetic angle they take. They pretend to have reverence for science.
Yes, and well, I mean, whether they're pretending or not, take him for what he said. So, you know, take his words for being real, and let's all agree that this is what science should be. Science should have this kind of integrity. I mean, as I just found out, apparently, jeez, names. Oh, no, I can't forget this name. It's impossible. Benjamin Franklin actually sold shit. You know, I thought Benjamin was sort of, you know, had a lot of angles, a lot of money, but no, he sold his shit to do his experiments. Sometimes, you know, he was running out. He didn't have the dough. But that's that kind of devotion, okay? So that's the argument. That kind of devotion is admirable, and that's what should be respected. And obviously, if some little poop head shows up and claims, I know science because I read a Wikipedia article, okay, that's pretty bad.
While denying science, look at Galileo, who defied authority to change the way we look at the cosmos. First, Galileo didn't develop heliocentrism.
Oh, you know, it's pretty silly to not state that Galileo took an idea and basically rationalized it. I mean, you know, but all these guys stood on each other's shoulders. But, you know, to try to now say Galileo wasn't defending an idea that nobody wanted to hear, which he did, and that he put it in simple and obvious and easy to understand terms with basically foundational experiments that showed it, made it visible, made you able to see it. The whole ramp thing with the bells and the, you know, made it quite visible. Here, 1, 3, 5, 7, and here you morons are still saying it's 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. I'm getting energy every foot it goes. It's the same energy. That's your MGH, by the way. Oh, fuck.
That was Copernicus, followed by Brahe and Kepler. And Galileo helped to overturn religious dogma, not some imaginary scientific dogma.
Oh, it wasn't imaginary. So let's understand. You know, you had to the scientists themselves were all religious kooks. So let's understand, you had to walk that walk, all right? And so it wasn't because Galileo... If Galileo had any allies, he wouldn't have been treated so shabbily. So that's the truth of it. If the rest of the scientists had any integrity at all, they would have defended and came to Galileo's defense. But they all didn't do a damn thing.
Geocentrism was not dogma. It was just the best model we had until a certain time where better telescopes were built and more sophisticated...
Yeah, and who's the guy who made that happen also? You can say he stole the fundamental idea of a telescope, but he's the one who made it work. So again, like Edison, he made it work.
Sophisticated measurements could be made. He made astronomical observations and performed computations, just like modern astrophysicists. The unbiased engagement with nature is indeed how science is done, and yet we will see him deny this obvious...
Okay, so it is not how science is done, because you can see it in the people who become scientists. So I remember that girl, whatever her name was, you know, she was convinced to get into science by the Dr. Quantum video, because, oh, it's also magical, and it's also special, and it's also blah, 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 because it's all this mind over matter crap and all this other crap they promise. So all this hypey physics is just, you know, it is just that. It's all hype. It's not, this isn't the real story. The real story is dark and dismal. All right, and this is all this silver lining, fluffy circle of life kind of crap. You're making a Disney movie of science, okay? You've taken all the balls out of it, all right, by creating all of your singularities and all your little special sparkly stuff. I mean, look at every single physics presentation. It has all of this drama and sparks and happy, happy, happy. You know, it's all this magic and fun. That's the fun of science, is the magical hobgoblin bits.
In fact, countless times as we move forward.
Within this notion of trusting science, we can begin to see that the very idea of science has come to split into two primary currents. On the one hand, there is the notion of science as a continual practice of investigation, actually engaging with the natural world and thereby coming to reveal the inner workings of nature. On the other hand, we have the notion of the science.
More stock footage, this time of fake students in a fake classroom, which again...
Okay, it's amazing. He's insulting stock footage when he uses it, and all of the science presenters use it. So what's the point of that? You know, such duplicitous hypocrisy. Stock footage, you use blenders. They actually use blenders to create their little fake black hole lensing pictures, you know. This is what a black hole would look like if we could see it. Whoa!
Perfectly exemplifies the artificiality with which the narrator pretends to know what happens in real science classrooms. Chemistry students don't recite dogmatic axioms about chemistry. They go in the lab and do chemistry. They run...
Right, so we're talking, okay, so you can make that argument for chemistry. They obviously do the same experiments over and over and over again, just like physics does. So they have their standard, let's watch something catch fire, let's watch something melt, let's watch something turn blue. So they have all these standard methylene blue kind of, ooh, put that on your slide and blah, blah, blah. So don't be talking like it isn't a standardized regime, okay? It's a catechism, all right? And in physics, they do the same thing, and they do their little air cart experiments, and sometimes they have blobs of clay on them because it doesn't work all the time. You know, but they never drop 4 pounds 1 foot and 1 pound 4 feet and measure the energy.
Reactions and learn analytical techniques to ascertain the identity of what they produce. Physics students don't just sit there and take dictation. They do physics. They replicate...
So this is part of the bullshit, okay? Obviously in some colleges they don't do any physics at all in terms of any experiments. It's all just... You're just told what the results are. You're told what you're supposed to believe. And that's why, again, it could be argued that none of it's very credible. I mean, I saw I saw 3 different colleges use that stupid shooting a monkey falling thing. You know, and I thought MIT, that was their thing, right? So first, Professor Lewin does it. And then you find a 1960s MIT video where they're doing the same experiment. You're saying, oh, he didn't invent anything. He didn't invent any of these experiments. So it's not even his pantomime. I mean, it's not even his performance art. It's somebody else's performance art. And then you find that all the other colleges have done it too. So they all use this same silly little fairy tale, okay, to do their physics, their science, because they have to make it entertaining. You know, they have to, and entertaining to who? What quality of brain is it going to be entertaining to?
Landmark experiments from pioneers in physics and derive these laws for themselves. This notion that science education equals indoctrination...
Yeah, you're aware. You don't test any of it. So again, it is indoctrination. That's the only way you can keep selling MGH. Okay, it doesn't work. I give the anything velocity. I can't use MGH anymore because that doesn't mean a damn thing. Distance is going to be irrelevant if it has a previous velocity. So MGT always works, and they can't even figure that part out. And then the work equals force times distance. Well, that really fails all over the place because I could just roll the ball across the floor and I could just demonstrate twice the velocity, 4 times the distance, but it's not 4 times the energy because, yeah, it's not 4 units of friction, not 4 equal units of friction. I mean, it's all crap.
Is the most transparently idiotic narrative imaginable, exclusively peddled and believed by people who have never taken a single science course in their entire lives.
Science understood as a bond.
So again, he makes this accusation that somehow they're completely ill-informed, but they seem to have some information. So again, how could you can't have that both ways either. So I can't vouch for other people, but Bill Gates has a wacky rope theory. He's a physicist, so you can't really make that argument. I mean, he did take all the courses and do all the shit. There's lots of people who are in the category of being an outsider, so to speak, with some counter theorist, and they've watched and seen and participated in a ton of catechism classes.
Of facts which we are authorized to believe, or even obligated to believe, by a priesthood of professional academics whose sociological function is to tell us what is and is not a defensible belief. Ultimately, the science is, in essence, a fundamentally doctrinal form of spirituality.
This is another pathetic aspect of this narrative.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, you're not going to debunk that truth, because that's all it really is. A little hierarchy decides what's going to get talked about and what's a subject, and that's it. And nothing else will get on the table. There's nothing else on the table but what Veritasium says. So Veritasium made this silly fucking video about electricity on, it's the field outside the wires that's causing the light bulb to light and blah, blah, blah. And it's a pile of crap. All right? It is garbage. It's pseudoscience in every respect. It's just crap he's making up. He really doesn't have any experiment to demonstrate that's actually happening. It's just a bunch of theoretical shit, and you're required to somehow prove him wrong. He doesn't have to prove himself right. He can, you have to go to the trouble to prove him wrong. And that's all this is about. You get to make extraordinary claims that you don't have to defend with real, ordinary evidence, and everybody else has to produce at least ordinary evidence to disprove your extraordinary claim.
People have been doing science for centuries. In particular, the 20th century saw unbelievable progress in every scientific field.
So again, that's the Industrial Revolution and had nothing to do with, frankly, science, okay? Science didn't invent the assembly line. Science didn't invent the fact that we found oil and had this cheap energy source, and the fact that we figured out the electricity thing and made these efficient motors and all this other crap. It wasn't science that did any of that, okay? The Wright brothers weren't really scientists. They were trial and errorists. Okay, they crashed a lot before they got it right. So this is just such bullshit again. Him to saying scientists made the modern world when no, they didn't do a damn thing really. And we know the innovations came little tiny steps at a time, and it came because somebody figured out, oh, it doesn't catch on fire if I do this.
As such, an enormous mountain of knowledge has been produced. If you want to learn science, you have to learn about what people have already done. That means
that you haven't done. So again, a mountain of knowledge that is not proven in any respect. Okay, so we have to, the whole entanglement theory, the whole expanding universe is just based on the redshift. There's no big pile of evidence. Again, so he's talking about this mountain of evidence when no, there's not a mountain of evidence. There's a void of evidence. There's just a mountain of bullshit. A mountain of claims that have never, extraordinary claims that have never really been proven. Again, you haven't even proven 4 pounds dropped 1 foot is the same as 1 pound dropped 4 feet. Where is that proof?
Learning facts pertaining to the history of science that has led to our current understanding. That's just how it goes. Pretending this process is somehow dogmatic is like pretending that learning a foreign language is dogmatic.
All right, just say to the average viewer, is that how you see it? That the science percolates from the volume up, and it's not decided by the top down. That if the talking heads decide the agenda of science, string theory wouldn't even exist if a few popular scientists didn't say the words now again, because it doesn't make any sense. It's completely unintuitive. It's so fucking complicated, nobody can even understand it. Multi-dimensional nonsense. It's all baby talk. How did that earn a place in the conversation? How did it earn it? By what explanation does it provide that makes it earn anything?
Look at these priests, all reciting the same script about what these strange words mean. None of them are free thinkers. They just regurgitate their indoctrination.
And they do. That's all they do. As pointed out, Professor Lewin saw the silly little monkey drop experiment and decided he'll do that too. They're just mimicking each other. They're not doing anything innovative. They're not doing anything to really think about it and say, well, maybe this is wrong and maybe I should correct that. Oh, shit. I don't know how many other physicists besides Professor Lewin thinks there's two voltages in the same place, so I guess he innovated that crap. But you can't even agree on that shit, right? Well, I mean, one guy from Fermilab says, well, single slits is diffraction. That doesn't have anything to do with Huygens and all that other crap. That's diffraction. And the double slit is interference. And then Professor Lewin says exactly the opposite. It would be a nonsense for you to think there's some other mechanism causing the two effects. The two effects are obviously the same thing, and they're obviously being caused by exactly the same physics.
All give the same definitions because that's what the words mean. This is how you learn a language, and it's also part of how you learn science.
Oh, so again, more bullshit that you have a rational definition of the word work. I can hold 100 pounds up, and you morons are going to say I'm not doing any work. Yeah, sure I'm not.
You learn facts about what we have already uncovered about the physical world and the context in which we learned it. If you're too much of a lazy crybaby to do that,
amazing.
Just admit it to yourself and keep quiet. Because science...
All right, so we can call you all kinds of names then, right? I mean, that door's open. You're opening it wide here, saying, oh, look, us credible science, we have such a weak argument that we have to resort to name-calling because we can't win the argument. So aren't you looking a little bit desperate? Aren't you looking a little desperate?
This isn't dogma. You're just stupid.
Beneath the specific empirical claims made by actual researchers or the facts and theories which are formal.
So again, calling this guy stupid is one thing. Call it, that's just ridiculous. He's obviously intelligent enough to write a pretty meaningful. Like I said, if somebody else was saying the words, you would say these are good words. It's well stated. The argument is it's got some important and salient points in it. Now, the fact that he's doing it in some package of bullshit, yeah, that's fine. Point out the package of bullshit. Point out the corruption in his view of what science is and why is he motivated to do this. But don't sit there and pretend that some of these arguments aren't damn good arguments defending the fact that science should be better than it is. It should be a lot better than it is. Everybody's just selling fucking books with really shitty covers. Look at this stupid MIT Technology Review. This is the best they could come up with. Shit, it looks like my website. It's a piece of, it's just, a book cover should do a little better than that.
Sanctioned by textbooks, we find within the core of the science a very specific complex of metaphysical assumptions about what the world must be like and what can or cannot qualify as true or real. It is furthermore a system of belief which conditions the way we think about what sorts of opinions can be considered respectable, and thus the structure of the science comes to condition the relationships between belief and social capital. Those who are well...
Yeah, I think I would use better graphics than this to point out the corruption of it all. These are just the imbeciles. These people aren't going to go anywhere. These people aren't going to, do anything. They just passed their little mathematical tests. They got their degree, and now they're going to go sell ads at Google.
Informed and well-educated believe certain things, and therefore such beliefs come to serve a sociological function as a signifier of social respectability.
And this is where he pivots, knowing that he's totally incapable of refuting actual science, so he starts to blabber about metaphysics.
Yeah, and so again, there isn't all kinds of metaphysics in science and what you're selling. The very fact that the scientists don't, tell YouTube, please, that Dr. Quantum video, you got to put some kind of statement on there that, us scientists don't really believe any of that shit. Okay, that people's consciousness is controlling. But then your own scientists will get on the news and say it. Mickey Aikaku or some other kook will get on there and they'll say, yeah, it's an observer effect. And yeah, if we're not there to see it, it didn't happen.
He has to generate a false dichotomy. There is reality, which he refers to as a belief system, and then some fabricated alternative, which he can use.
So again, you go back to Schrodinger's cat. The whole point of it is to mock how silly the theory is, and you've turned it into some sort of symbol for how credible the theory is. It's ludicrous the way it's been turned and twisted by scientists. Of course, they're just metaphysicians. And they're not doing science. They're doing some sort of spiritual, religious gobbledygook.
To promote his fantasies and try to put them on level ground alongside reality. In actuality, people who get an education actually learn things. That's the social capital. They're educated and can apply their knowledge.
Yeah, they learned some things, but not enough. And not enough to be able to scrutinize the authorities that force them to memorize theorems and formulas. But that's all they've done. Do they really understand? Do they really understand a photon? Do you understand a gravity? Do you understand any of this shit? No, is the simple argument. You have no understanding because your science is so defective. It's in such little pieces. Einstein, 2 years before he died, said, yeah, 50 years working on photons and I haven't improved my understanding one iota. I mean, it's a real statement saying pretty critically, yeah, our science isn't doing that good because, frankly, I've been right involved in all of it for 50 years and we're not improving understanding any.
To actually create and achieve things. People who get engineering degrees can build machines. People who get chemistry degrees can build molecules. People who don't study these subjects can't do these things and just whine about it on the internet.
All right, so again, this is just a wrong statement because a ton of the people who are in these dissident communities for whatever reasons, religious kooks, whatever, a ton of them are engineers. A ton of them are people who can hand-on fix. I can fix a car. You know, I can do these stuff. So don't be telling us we don't know how the world works or how to mechanically do. I worked in a machine shop. I did even the theoretical part. So fuck you. It's just bullshit.
Many scientists aren't exactly all that eager to publish findings which might call into question, for example, the adequacy of Darwinian natural selection in actually explaining the nature of life, even though there are many reasons to believe that natural selection does not give us a complete understanding.
So we know this idiot has an agenda now. There's the agenda. So he's some sort of religious kook. Okay, and so he's got to try to bend science into some sort of God theory. And that's all his agenda is. But the fact is a lot of the statements he made are just absolutely true.
Understanding of how life evolves, whence life originated, or how speciation actually occurs. Yet to question the Darwinian paradigm would be to risk affiliating oneself with creationists or other structures of belief which have been deemed anti-science.
You can't argue something that is so substantiated by every kind of different kinds of evidence. The geology, the biology, the DNA, it all verifies one theory, okay? And whether you want to say, oh, well, look, let's add some punctuated equilibrium and let's add something like, incest, creates more mutations, which creates more innovations. Small groups are easier to change than big groups. I mean, there's lots of little pieces you can add to evolution, but you can't change the fact of it. I mean, the fact of it is more proven than the round earth, frankly.
He finally decides to make specific scientific references and immediately humiliates himself. Surprise, surprise, he's an evolution denier. He starts regurgitating the apologist script about how natural selection doesn't explain everything, when every biologist from 1900...
Well, you don't even have to be a biologist, like I said. I mean, the evidence is in so many different fields that you don't need just biologists. You can use archaeology, you can use all kinds of different disciplines that'll show you this progression is unavoidable.
...onward would tell you that themselves. There are many evolutionary mechanisms, not just natural selection.
I mean, just find a hip bone of a whale and hit him with it. There, argument done.
This moron knows about none of them. He just spews neo-Darwinian like he's an intern at Discovery Institute. We've beaten this to death in my Discovery Institute debunks, so let's move on.
Yes, that's fine. Debunking creationists is, so go ahead, waste your time. So yes, I'm on board. Go ahead. Mock and ridicule the idea of creationism, but don't sit there and pretend your science is above similar questions as to motivation and credibility, because it is subject to questions regarding motivation and credibility. You are Leibnizians, okay? You are fanatics for crazy, stupid, idiotic logic.
But if we understand the controversy in terms of doctrine, ideology, and notions of sacred knowledge, then the motivations at work here begin to become much clearer. The letter of...
I mean, you're giving their side evidence by hysterically overreacting to the accusation that your science isn't perfect. And it isn't. And so you should just acknowledge the fact that, okay, it's flawed, but it's not flawed enough to be as dumb as you. I mean, that would be a better argument.
Protest against the New Trends in Evolution conference was not about science. It was about the science, the conception of science as a body of sacred doctrines. Whether one affirms, questions, or denies such sacred knowledge is much more a matter of moral commitment to a particular ideological structure than it is a matter of evidence or rational arguments.
Yes, if we look at it in the context of ideology, we see that only ideology could be responsible for pushing anti-science rhetoric as real science. Part of this ideology involves pretending that the fruits of empirical science are an ideology.
Yes, well, let's just say, so again, he's saying the fruits of science. So again, he's arguing that somehow these silly moronic theories about big bangs and black holes and all this crap has anything to do with you having a cell phone. So again, it's all just bullshit. All right, so there's a whole bunch of mysticism and voodoo in science, and to pretend it isn't is again just to deny the simple argument that you haven't done any of these experiments, and your physics says things that are overtly nonsensical and idiotic. Right? I mean, I've illustrated this so many times, but I mean, I put one mass on here, I have 1 unit of energy in the spring. I put a second, the same exact mass on, do the same exact work, and all of a sudden now I have 4 units of energy. That's nonsense on its face. 1 plus 1 does not equal 4. All right, and you can't defeat that simple counter argument to your mumbo jumbo. Your entire physics is based on a theory that doesn't make any sense. 1 plus 1 is not 4. 1/2 mv squared is nonsense. It's a fable. It's a hobgoblin in the middle of your physics, and none of you can recognize that simple truth. Even though you have zero evidence to argue with. You can't show me it taking 25 times the fuel to spin a motor 5 times as fast. You can't show it because it doesn't goddamn happen. And you goddamn well know it. And you're denying. You're sitting here pretending, oh, I never heard that argument. No, you just ran away from it because it doesn't match your theoretical concept. It's anti your evolution theory or whatever however you want to rank it. It doesn't match the necessary theories you need to defend your standard model, to defend how you measured the weight of an electron, to defend anything you come up with. I mean, you have our mass. We somehow have magical mass. Our mass is somehow magical. You don't need electrons and protons to be moved by the gravity to have mass. So somehow your electrons and protons are 1% of your weight. Well, how does that make any goddamn sense? Because we know the gravity isn't bending anything else but mass.
A denial of evolution is a denial of the field of biology. So biologists will point out this absurdity, and charlatans will call that adherence to doctrine, because they have zero ability to actually discuss science.
Oh, look, the whole point, the whole thing Darwin did was mix all these subjects, and if he would have had DNA and all this other stuff, it would have been great. But he mixed the geology with the people breeding animals, with the bones he found, with the bird beaks. He mixed it all together, okay, to make the argument. Sometimes you have to do that. You can't have the specialist arguing from their specialty. You have to confirm a fact based on the fact that it's confirmed because so many different ways of looking at it comes up with the same picture.
Remember, science isn't dogma. You're just stupid.
Oftentimes
so again, that's going to be your catchphrase. Then, my catchphrase will be, you're stupid and your science is dogma.
Rhetoric and apologetics of the science tends to take the form of an implied distinction between real science and pseudoscience. We are often assured by scientific media outlets and science popularizers that there is a clear and definitive difference between science and pseudoscience.
So I don't know why he's showing Sam Harris, because frankly Sam Harris is pretty articulate and doesn't say too many things that are, intrinsically flawed.
Science can be true or false, but pseudoscience is said to be somehow worse than false. Pseudoscience is said to violate the rules of science, and therefore is not even worthy of consideration alongside the real.
Well, it's true that if you can recognize and define it as being not of the discipline of science, which is show me, okay, so if your science is Jesus said, or the Bible says, well, that's pretty bad science, frankly, because it's really supposed to be about collecting facts and evidence. So the whole point of science is to apply logic to facts, and when you apply logic to facts, you can come up with some new facts, and then you apply logic to the new facts with the old facts, and you come up with another fact, and that's how it's supposed to progress. And somewhere that chain has been violated and broken because your science is claiming facts that there's no foundational facts. None of those facts were actual facts. 4 pounds dropped 1 foot is not the same as 1 pound dropped 4 feet.
Respectable science, which is said to follow the ritualistic procedures of science in the correct, orthodox manner.
He basically just defines pseudoscience and then baselessly scoffs at the definition. Yes, pseudoscience is charlatanry masquerading as science. Like Deepak Chopra.
Or like Mickey Ayakaku, or Degrassi Tyson. They say lots of outlandish things for which there's no proof or evidence, and they just claim we all have to believe.
Whom he flashes from this famous clip where Sam Harris shits all over him to thunderous applause. He pretends that people use the term pseudoscience to brand science they don't like, when in reality, science deniers just use words like dogma and indoctrination to
They have to use some kind of word, so you just use stupid, and what was your other word you used to insult people? Science denier, you use your own frickin' little catchwords, so what's the point? Yes, it's a negative thing to be accused of dogma. If you're a scientist, that's not good, right? So you don't want that accusation. So defend yourself against that accusation by demonstrating where you did prove what you're saying, where you did show me. Because frankly, you haven't shown me anything. I haven't seen this quirky thing. I haven't really never seen a piece of antimatter. I mean, I've never seen any of this unenergy. I mean, it's all just a story you tell. I've never seen this singularity crap.
And real science they don't like. Educated people can indeed explain in great detail why something like homeopathy is pseudoscience, and have done so countless times. Science deniers just ignore it and spew their anti-establishment script.
Well, they just ignoring, saying that, look, there must be some grain of use to some things, because people, you wouldn't have people, constantly saying, oh, it works, unless it does something. So you could argue that, Coca-Cola, okay, when it had cocaine in it, was a pretty good stimulant, until they figured out, oh, well, I guess that's because it's got cocaine in it, So, sometimes you don't know that something actually is doing something because you don't know everything about it. And you're just saying, because we haven't discovered the ingredient that's actually making this shit work, we're going to pretend it doesn't work.
Do those ideas allow us to make sense of things that previously seemed mysterious? Do the ideas allow us to see things which previously went unnoticed? If yes, then we continue to use those ideas, at least until we find ourselves at an impasse, at which our ideas are no longer adequate and therefore are in need of reevaluation. If not, we simply go back to nature and back to the drawing board and try again.
Yeah, so wouldn't that be again, these aren't terrible words this guy's saying, so just hold him to account for his words. Just say, okay, so show me then. Okay, if you think you've got another theory that evolution is wrong somehow, you're going to have to show me something better than some fake dinosaur fossil footprint with a human footprint on top of it, or some other kind of canardy bullshit. All right, you're going to have to say more than, where's the missing links? Because, obviously the argument is there's only 1 in a billion organisms gets fossilized. So, yeah, the missing links don't exist because they happen in a family of 17. Okay, a little tribe of 17 members is where the evolution actually took place. And then they came back to the big tribe and beat the shit out of everybody else with their bigger noses or something, whatever. All right. Pause for the commercial. Well, 2 commercials, actually.
Important. He's pretending to value the scientific process and shows stock footage of a telescope and photosynthesis.
Yeah, well, so what exactly? Take him at his word, okay? So he just did a pretty good statement saying, look, science should be evidence, and science should be proven, and science should be argued, and science should be tested. Well, yeah, those are all things you should be agreeing with and just saying, okay, yeah, those are great ideas. Make more videos about those great ideas and less videos about silly notions that somehow just because you morons believe in a god that we have to bend physics to fit your silly notions of reality.
And is admitting that we can do science that produces useful knowledge. But then he says that when an impasse is reached, our ideas need reevaluation. What is this impasse? And what does...
Oh, brother. So you don't know what the impasse is between bent space and all the other forms of force that are moving the speed of light. So the bent space is moving the speed of light, but it doesn't have any particles in it or doesn't have any things in it. And somehow all the other stuff in quantum mechanics and all the other stuff in the universe, frankly, the photons and the magnetism and the electricity and all of that crap, somehow moving exactly the same speed. Well, that stuff's made out of real stuff and it always is conserved and it's always moving in the universe, but somehow the gravity is just an isolated system. It's a little bent thing in space. It doesn't cause effects anywhere else. Some sort of bullshit like that. You don't have dualities and problems with these silly fucking theories. Yeah, there are huge problems, and you'll just ignore the huge problems. The light clock. The photons move in two directions. Well, yeah, we have to make the photon move in two directions to do our little funny lines to say it's relativity. You know, that the time dilated. When you never made a light clock, you never proved that photons can have two momentums, that the photon can move this way and go this way. So it can go 50 miles an hour this way, and it can go the speed of light that way. Yeah, bullshit, it can.
Reevaluation mean? Usually by impasse, they are referring to something totally fabricated that science doesn't seek to explain because it isn't a real thing. And by reevaluation, they...
Well, obviously there's no impasse on the subject of evolution, so he's got a long way to go before he's going to be able to credibly attack the theory of evolution. So if that's what his goal is, he's got a lot of evidence to undo. He's got an awful lot of evidence to explain away, and that's going to be, frankly, impossible. He couldn't explain it in one single category. He couldn't explain away that evidence. The Galapagos Islands basically telling you the Earth is, you know, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years old, just because of the fact that there's no way you could do that in 7,000 years.
Throw away an entire field of science that does successfully explain and predict many things. This is what frauds do with astrophysics. They want to inject...
So again, keep talking about frauds and keep talking about the exact same methods and tactics that your physics uses. So every documentary made on the subject of physics, every one of these shows they make is full of this fraud and fake and imagery and nonsense, and it's all just bullshit. Okay, total exaggeration, hyperbole. You know, the most proven theory in the history of mankind. Just both the most predictive theory ever invented. Well, that's right. You tell us the answer and we'll predict the answer. Tell me everything that's happening in the experiment, every single possible atomic event, and I'll tell you exactly what will happen. Well, duh.
Their pseudoscience into the scientific discourse. So they manufacture some kind of crisis, something science can't explain, sometimes real, sometimes imaginary, and then pretend that their pseudoscience can explain it, which it can't, while also ignoring...
So again, they're just saying about everybody, I'm just saying I have a simulation of charge, okay, that perfectly creates Maxwell's foundational drawings of what a charge is, and my simple solution, 2 + 2 + 2, okay, you can't make it any simpler in terms of there's only two kinds of force and two kinds of matter and two kinds of interactions and you're all done. All right, and it works. You don't have any simulation. You don't have any notion of where it comes from or how it manifests. And I have a simple explanation, dirt simple one, and you won't pay any attention. That's the truth. All right, continuing.
Ignoring everything that real science does explain. When charlatans try to assert this narrative, they hope that the viewer does not understand a very basic and obvious principle of scientific progress, which is this. No matter what new innovations occur, no matter what new data arise, no matter how dramatic a paradigm shift, new science must always explain observable phenomena as well or better than existing science.
So what a joke. Sorry, that's so bad. I mean, the whole wave-particle duality, that somehow it's a better explanation when, no, it fails in so many ways to sit there and even separate yourself from the corpuscle theory. So that wasn't a good idea. It didn't go anywhere good. And then you can get into the whole assigning plus and minus wrong and how that just, creates a complete bent and idiotic future where, you don't even have the voltage and the current moving in the same direction. So how can you understand this as a flow of electrons when you're saying the electrons are going both ways? Their voltage is going that way and their current is going that way. I mean, there's so much that's broken. Bent space is a more complete explanation. It doesn't complete anything. It's completely ludicrous. Some sort of vortex, some bent geodesic vortexing thing that the vacuum cleaner with no bag and no exhaust port. I mean, the whole thing is just terrible. So anyway, yeah. Well, let's see. We'll go to 30 minutes here.
You can't strip away a theory, whether ancient or modern, and replace it with absolutely nothing.
So I don't know who's replacing something with nothing, but again, so he's just talking about this guy or something. So I mean, so again, do you have to account for everything Degrassi Tyson says and Michio Kaku and all the rest of these people? Do you have to account for all of it? No. And I shouldn't have to account for every other dissident in the universe either and be labeled and, profiled into being accused of not having an argument when I do have an argument and I'm willing to pay you to counter it. So unlike these other dissidents, I'm willing to pay you to debunk me.
Something that fails to explain what the previous theory explains trivially. When you look at the advent of modern physics, equations in relativity and quantum mechanics all break down to Newtonian equations.
Oh, please. So again, just another preposterous lie, okay? Newton was a three-dimensional universe, okay? No fourth dimension. He thought all motion was, in fact, yes, it's relative, but there's an absolute fixed positions in space. So again, just a complete, this complete lying about who Newton was and what Newton believed to defend your physics. You're trying to use Newton's reputation and say, see, it's all just Newton. Well, it's not all Newton. It's nothing like Newton, frankly. It's completely anti-Newtonian physics. It's Huygens and Leibniz. It's not Newton's physics. It's Huygens and Leibniz. It's just such a lie, frankly. It's just such a lie to sit there and claim that this all breaks down to Newtonian physics. It doesn't at all. And if you start at Newton, which I did, okay, I said, okay, screw all this crap because I can't make any of their crap make any sense, all this spin shit, all this other bullshit. I tried to draw the universe, and nothing could possibly work with their concepts. So I went back to Newton and Galileo and said, let's start there. And now, how can I explain the difference between a force and matter? And then how can I explain how matter moves? Well, the force hits it. Well, if I allow the force to stick to the matter, then I can understand why the matter keeps going. So, lots of things that you didn't even try. Did you ever even try to think about gravity as a nuclear force, that it's the electrons and protons that are actually getting pushed, and that they have to be pushed by some kind of force? They can't just slide down a geodesic. Oh, amazing that he would do this crap.
In the limit of the slow and large. Newtonian mechanics emerges from these equations in these limiting cases.
It doesn't emerge at all. So again, it's just such a pile of shit. Newton was clearly a momentumist, okay? There's no way you could say that Newton's three laws weren't written about a momentum. And I can do simple experiments where I can prove, obviously, if Newton thought you could make twice the kinetic energy go one way that was going the other way, then Newton wouldn't have been a momentumist. But we know that that's not what Newton believed. So again, you just the third law was written. How can you say there's a third law? You have to have equal and opposite reaction or actions, and then just overtly do an experiment and tell me there's twice as much energy going one way than there is the other way, and then say it's consistent with Newton's third law. It's not consistent with the law. The gun and the bullet is not consistent with Newton's third law. It doesn't have anything to do with Newton's third law. How does it break down? How does any of your physics break down to Newton's physics? You just pretend that it's, well, it's okay. We can break the laws anytime we want, as long as we don't point it out that we just broke the law. As long as there's nobody to, write us a ticket, you can do it. You do it all the time. You just make up this crap. You have to conserve energy. Well, what kind of energy? Well, whatever you want to conserve. So if one experiment you conserve the kinetic energy, that's great. Another experiment you conserve the momentum, well, that's great. I mean, it's just bullshit.
I'm not speaking metaphorically. This is literally true. When you look at the time dilation equation, if you input a
right. It's not even an equation. It's got this little catch in it to get rid of the zeros and the infinities, and that's all it is. And it's not saying anything, because it doesn't happen in the real world. Nothing travels this fake twice the two kinds of velocities. Nothing has two velocities. No force anyway. Matter can have two velocities, but the force can't.
Velocity that is negligible compared with the speed of light. It algebraically reduces to normal kinematics.
So again, you can say it reduces to kinematics that again is distorted by what you think a dv is, what you think a change in velocity, how you would write even a change in velocity. When all the change in velocity is itself a velocity. You're adding velocity or subtracting velocity. Acceleration is just a word. It doesn't have a conceptual reality. You're just changing velocity. You're adding it or you're subtracting it. You don't need a special new word to describe adding and subtracting. All right, 30 minutes. All right, so I probably will do the rest of this, even though this is very time-consuming and probably not too many people are going to want to hear more and more of this crap, but whatever. It can't, it shouldn't hurt anything to just say don't watch the videos, okay? Doesn't matter to me, all right? But I mean, the counter-argument should be made. People shouldn't get away with this crap, frankly. This is just hyperbole and name-calling, and... He's not even paying much attention to the physics the other guy's arguing. He's arguing his own defense of his own relativity theory. I don't know if the other guy even pointed out how your relativity theory is a pile of crap. Did he make that argument somewhere? And that's why you're showing us these formulas as if these formulas are credible? I mean, I'd argue that Newton wrote it pretty simple. I mean, pretty much stated it pretty clearly that the change in the force is the change in your momentum. End of the subject. More force, more momentum. Less force, less momentum. That's it. Equal proportions. Anyway. God, I just really do dislike this planet. I don't like it much at all. I would prefer to be in a different civilization made of brains of better character than the ones on this planet. That's for sure. I'd like to be on Gary's planet, frankly. Yeah. Don't have much use for diversity. yeah, do it right. Or not, don't do it at all. Anyway, so till the next time and such. People are just so stupid. I mean, really, the argument should be kind of over when I just say to somebody, for 300 years they've been arguing something's true. Drop 4 pounds 1 foot, and they drop 1 pound 4 feet for 350 years. They've been claiming that proves their theory, and they never proved that. Right? Never wrote a paper on it. Never demonstrated it to be true. And that's what they call good science. Yeah. Sure it is. I mean, they might as well just say we've proven the existence of hobgoblins, so let's just keep talking about what colored shirts they wear. Too ridiculous. All right. So, till the next time and such.